what made the 30th, you guys saw a lot of action from Normandy, the Battle of Normandy on, but what made the 30th Infantry Division such a good division, do you think?
The commanding general, the colonels, everybody took care of us. We weren't left alone. We had everything we needed, and they guided us in the right places. Well, I'm still here, so they must have guided me real well. But they said it was the best, and it's true. We had a colonel who mentioned the Battle of the Bulge, and he wrote it all out that this was the toughest battle of the whole World War II, and it was true. Like you wrote about Normandy, you wrote about St. Vith, and it was just a nasty, nasty situation. But I loved the upper echelon, and we did what we had to do.
When you talk about it being it was really one of the more savage battles in Europe. I mean, in the Pacific, the war in the Pacific was savage pretty much all the way through. But what made the Battle of the Bulge such a difficult slog? Was it the opponent? Was it the weather? Was it a combination of everything?
It was a combination. We went there December 17th, 1944. I forget I remember the date. And it was cold, snow, ice. We got to Belgium early in the morning, and it was just a place from nowhere. We were told that the opposing army was wearing our uniforms. They had confiscated a lot of uniforms. They were wearing these white sheets all over. It's hard to tell the difference between one of our own and one of theirs. I dug in a foxhole right near our 57 millimeter howitzer, being an anti-tank. Slept in a foxhole for seven days before we even started to attack, because we had to get where we were, what we were going to do. But everything worked out. From our commander all the way up the line, we did very well.
And were you scared?
Absolutely. Well, I could get it to being scared later on. When they made me the bazooka man, we could not use the heavy 57 millimeter gun. I was given a bazooka, went out with the squads, trying to get some information, counterattacks, so forth and so on. We did come across a group. Should I tell them about that?
I don't know, were they strippers or were they?
Unfortunately, I had a lot of clothes on.
Tell us about the group.
But we did encounter a funny situation. We were walking by this hill, and we were always checking out, seeing where the enemy was. And we could hear German voices. We heard tanks warming up, and it was up an incline on the hill, right over the crest, and I could definitely hear the German language. And we decided to dig in there, and I went halfway up the hill with a bazooka, because you heard the tanks. But there's a little depression on the hill, just close enough where I could shoot the bazookas. Matter of fact, my loader was there with me. It's as clear as you can make it. He was there with me, and on a bazooka you have to have somebody's going to shoot it, and somebody's going to fix the wires in the back and tie it together.
Right.
He was there for a couple of shots. I disabled one of the tanks. It came over the crest of the hill, and I was lucky. But he loaded the second one, and he took off. He left me alone. Don't forget that. But the second tank came over the crest, and I was lucky I disabled that one too. Wow. So we didn't have a counterattack. They went back where they were, and there was no attack.
Now, is that when you won your Silver Star?
Yes, but you know.
Or were awarded your Silver Star?
But sitting there, you could never be more scared than I was. You know, you're shaking. Why the guns didn't go off? Why this didn't go off? And I must have had a shiny star on me. And of course, I didn't get hit.
When you talk about disabling a German tank, now German tanks, were very difficult to disable from the sides. But underneath the tank, they were vulnerable, and in the back of the tank, they were vulnerable. Did you know that? And is that when it came over the cliff?
These were not
rise?
Tiger tanks.
Okay.
The Tiger tanks were immense. These were the smaller tanks, and yes, I hit them underneath, disabled them that way. But you know, I was going to a field one day. We attacked at daybreak. All the attacks we made, and we were crossing the field. And must have been about the whole platoon was there, and all of a sudden we hear tanks coming. We're going on an open field. It's a little dark, and two Tiger tanks, one after another, and you could see the standing up in one, standing up in the second. The second one had a searchlight on, and they followed each other, and they were as close as that table over there. And I looked up at them, immense. I didn't take the bazooka on that one.
You wanted to hide.
No, not only that. You could have had a chance
Right.
if you were real brave.
Yeah.
But the second one would have got you.
Right.
Delayed. So that was one of our experiences. But I can go on and on and on. But it was touchy, and I was scared.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. The Tiger tanks, for those of you who don't know, were probably the most feared tanks the Germans had in World War II. They had an 88mm on the front of the tank. When the 88 was used for shooting down airplanes, it was used for artillery, and they decided to put them on these tanks, and the armament on the Tiger tanks was a lot thicker than a regular Panzer tank, Panzer, which is the German word for tank. So these were the most feared, because when it came to the American Sherman tank versus a German Tiger tank, the Sherman tanks were what the British called Ronson lighters. They would go up, and Tommy cookers they called them a lot of the times, because they would flame up very quickly, and the crews inside would be killed. So the Tiger tanks in the Ardennes were extremely feared.
They were tough. But again, I never forget, one day they said, you want to go have a shower. They took us to a town called Spa.
Oh yeah, Spa.
You ever hear Spa?
Mm-hmm.
We had open trucks, freezing, and we went and got our showers.
And you hadn't showered for how long prior to that?
Oh, I don't know.
Probably a month.
Oh, more than that.
More than a month? I'm just going to slide my chair over. You're okay now.
That was funny. That Spa was a funny thing, but then you get into an open truck and you're freezing, and you go back into your foxhole.
Let me ask you a question. You're Jewish.
Yes.
So when you're fighting over there, did you have any idea of the atrocities that were being committed against the Jewish people?
You know, we did have a chance to go. Well, it was a Polish camp. We went by there, but we heard all about what was happening in Auschwitz, and how they were killing the Jews, how they changed these rooms around, and so they take them and get them all undressed into a place where they're going to take a shower. They had jets, poison gas, and I remember seeing a big trench with bodies in it, and that's how they treated the Jews.
Did that make you want to fight harder?
You hate them. You hate them, hate them, hate them. Again, you heard what I've told you before. At that stage, you either kill or be killed. So you have no choice.
Did you have any problems after the war? You know, coming back and nightmares and things like that?
The first couple of weeks, I had to settle down, you know, but after that, everything, I never even told my children for years and years and years what I did, where I was, so forth, until about 10 years ago, when you and your pictures and movies and everything else came alive, and it came all back to me. I can just visualize everything to a T.
And we've taken veterans back to Normandy and other places, and it seems like there's a catharsis with them when they go back and they see what it looks like today, and also when they talk about it. Did you feel better when you finally did start to talk about it?
Yes, yeah, but everything was coming to a head, you know. I can just see it right now. I'm telling you about it, I can tell you exactly where I laid on that hill, and where those Tiger tanks were, and you can visualize the whole field. it leaves an impression that never goes away.
When you're fighting in that environment of winter, it was the coldest winter in the Ardennes in 40 years. It's freezing, it's snowing. When people died, they were pretty much left where they were, and their bodies froze. Is that still something when you're fighting in that environment where you see a frozen American or a frozen German body, and I mean, what goes through your mind when you see that kind of horrific sight?
It's sad. It's sad to see another German, this side or the other. You hate the Germans. In fact, I woke up one day, got out of my foxhole, and there was a German lieutenant not too far away, and somebody comes by and turns them over and gets a nice, one of their favorite guns.
The Luger.
I put the Luger. I missed this one. But there was, no, you do get all kinds of, it just comes back, period.
What did you think of the Germans as soldiers?
They were soldiers. But towards the end of the war, they just had pick-me-ups. And they were making soldiers out of them, but they were sloppy.
Younger kids and older men?
Kids, yeah, young kids too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was in Germany, and for a little while, before we went back to the Battle of the Bulge, where we had a prison camp there, they were good soldiers, because we used to allow the officers to take them out, clean you up here and clean you up there. You give the officers something, and they were strict with their help, really. And they would do the work and bring them back and so forth and so on. And it worked out well.
When did you find out about the overall scale of the Holocaust? Was it after the war?
No, it was during the war we were told about it.
But did you know the scope of what was going on at like Auschwitz and Dachau and Treblinka?
All of them.
Okay.
No, I told you, we stopped at a Polish one, and
Yeah.
I could see the help there, and not the help, the prisoners, and everybody had those striped gowns on.
Yeah.
But we were told, and but I never got to Auschwitz.
Yeah.
I did get up near, we met the Russians up near the Elbe River.
Yeah.
And I met them. They were fighters too.
Was there any vodka involved in this, or?
Unfortunately, the answer is no, but they were fighters. I'll tell you, if Hitler had left Russia alone, we wouldn't be here today.
Right. Let me ask you one more question, and we can open it up for a couple of questions from the folks here. I've never met a World War II veteran who said we should not have dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You were planning and training to go to the Pacific. What were your thoughts when you heard about the bombs and that the war was finally officially over?
We came back from Germany, and we headed to England. And we took up some basic training for the Pacific. And we heard about the bombs. And I'll tell you, I was happy. They deserve it. What they did to us, we did to them. And I have no qualms about that. And they canceled everything we were doing. In fact, I came home on the Queen Mary, one night on the deck, one night in a bunk. It was good to get home.
It's interesting because we have interviewed, I think, over 400 World War II veterans, and the thing that we do in the 21st century is that we try to put a 21st century lens on something that happened in the 20th century. But I always tell people you need to put yourself in the position of these men, especially the men who were fighting in the Pacific, who were facing going into Japan. They fought the Japanese from Guadalcanal through to Okinawa, Iwo Jima. They saw what was happening on those islands, the ferocity of the fight. And now they were facing going into Japan, fighting the men, the women, the children, and everything else. So there was a sense of relief, huge relief for those in the Pacific. And then you guys who had already been through so much combat, you weren't going home. You were going now to fight a foe who was even more savage than the foe that you were fighting. So I guess, is it tough for people to understand today your feelings about that and the bombs and how it was a relief for all of America and the world?
It wasn't entirely that, My thoughts were what they sneaky did to Hawaii, and how the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, to go back to Brooklyn, your hometown, and attend the wedding. And they wouldn't give me a pass. Now, we were still training in North Carolina. So I took the whole week and I fumed and fumed and fumed. The next weekend, I went AWOL. Wrong thing. I went AWOL. I got to Brooklyn again. No MP stopped me, and I got back to camp late Sunday and got up for revelry Monday morning. I had a second lieutenant, Southern, who got wind of it, and he put me in for a court-martial. Not a summary court-martial, which is 30 days, bing, bing, bing. A special court-martial. 2/3 of your pay for 6 months, and stockade for 6 months. What do you do? I was in the stockade for 3 months, for 3 days. And, lucky the guy came along looking for volunteers. Just take me. I was taken down in New Jersey to embark somewhere on a ship, and an armed guard, like I was a criminal. Here I am, a kid. They ferried me over to New York, put me on an English ship, no convoy, all the subs, and we went over to London. You know, so that's why I got away early. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't do that, but whatever.
An incentive.